It started as a routine traffic stop on a quiet California highway. Officers waved over a vintage truck, its driver, an elderly man in a weathered leather jacket and cowboy hat, complying without hesitation. What the officers didn't realize was that they had stopped Hollywood legend Clint Eastwood. And when they asked him to open his trunk, they had no idea what they were about to uncover, or that someone was secretly filming the entire exchange. What followed left everyone in awe. Picture this: a sun-drenched afternoon on a winding highway just outside Carmel, California. The gentle hum of engines breaks the silence as cars pass by. Clint Eastwood, now in his 90s but still as sharp and composed as ever, is behind the wheel of his prized vintage Ford truck. The truck, like its owner, carries an aura of rugged authenticity. Clint's hands grip the worn steering wheel as he cruises down the road. His sunglasses shield his piercing eyes, and his expression is calm but focused. To any passerby, he'd look like just another man enjoying a drive. But for those who know, it's impossible to miss the unmistakable presence of one of Hollywood's greatest icons. Out of nowhere, flashing red and blue lights appear in Clint's rearview mirror. He sighs, pulling over to the side of the road. The officers approach cautiously, unaware of who they're dealing with. Clint remains calm, his demeanor unshaken. Meanwhile, a curious bystander in a nearby car discreetly begins recording the scene on their phone. The lead officer steps up to Clint's window. "Good afternoon, sir. We're conducting routine checks in the area. Can you please step out of the vehicle?" Without hesitation, Clint obliges. As he steps out, his iconic stature and weathered face draw a flicker of recognition from the younger officer nearby. But the lead officer, focused on protocol, doesn't notice. "Sir, we need to check your trunk," the officer states. Clint raises an eyebrow, his lips curling into the faintest smirk. "My trunk? Sure thing," he says, his voice carrying the gravelly tone that's graced countless film lines. He walks to the back of his truck and opens the trunk with practiced ease. The bystander's phone captures every moment. What could Clint Eastwood possibly have in his trunk? The anticipation builds as the officers peer inside. 4. Midpoint development. As the trunk opens, the officers' faces shift from curiosity to surprise. Inside are neatly packed boxes labeled film equipment, props, and charity supplies. Among the items are reels of old film, vintage costumes, and stacks of goods clearly meant for donation. "What's all this?" the lead officer asks, his tone softening. Clint chuckles, leaning against the truck. "I'm working on a project," he explains. "And these?" He points to the charity supplies. "They're for the local shelter. I make a trip every month to drop off donations." The younger officer's eyes widen. "Wait a second. Are you Clint Eastwood?" Clint smiles, tipping his hat. "Guilty as charged," he says. The recognition spreads, and the officers exchange looks, suddenly realizing the significance of the moment. The bystander filming whispers excitedly, "That's Clint Eastwood!" The lead officer steps back, his tone now filled with admiration. "Mr. Eastwood, I'm so sorry for the trouble. We had no idea." Clint waves off the apology. "Don't worry about it. You're just doing your job," he says. Then, with a glint of humor, he adds, "But next time, you might want to be careful who you're asking to open their trunk. You never know what you'll find." The officers laugh, the tension fully broken. Clint takes a moment to chat with them, sharing stories from his filmmaking days and even cracking a few jokes. The bystander's recording captures every second, including Clint's trademark charm and humility. Before parting ways, Clint turns to the officers. "Keep up the good work," he says. "And if you ever need help directing traffic, let me know. I've directed a few things in my time." As Clint drives away, the video of the encounter quickly spreads online. The footage showcases not only Clint's graciousness, but also his ongoing commitment to giving back to his community. Fans around the world praise the legendary actor for his humility and kindness. The officers, meanwhile, share their own reflections on the experience. "It's not every day you meet someone like Clint Eastwood," one of them says in a follow-up interview. "And to see him doing so much good, even at his age, is inspiring." For Clint, it's just another day. But for everyone who witnesses the story, it's a reminder that true greatness isn't just about fame or accomplishments. It's about how you treat others and the impact you leave behind. A little girl asks Clint Eastwood about God. His response brings her to tears. An unexpected question from a little girl during a quiet event brings out a heartfelt response from legendary actor Clint Eastwood. At a small-town community event, an 8-year-old girl raises her hand and asks Clint Eastwood a deeply personal question. What does God mean to you? The room falls silent, and Eastwood pauses, visibly moved. What he says next leaves the young girl and the entire audience in tears, a moment of vulnerability and wisdom from the Hollywood icon. It was a crisp fall afternoon in a quiet Wyoming town. Clint Eastwood, known for his rugged on-screen persona, had been invited to a local community center to speak about his career, life lessons, and philanthropy. The room was filled with people of all ages, parents, grandparents, and children eager to meet the legendary actor. Among them was 8-year-old Lily, a curious and bright-eyed girl clutching a small notebook and pencil. She had been excited for weeks, telling everyone she knew that she would meet the Clint Eastwood. But unlike most children her age, Lily wasn't interested in autographs or selfies. She had a question she had been saving, one she thought only someone as wise as Clint could answer. Eastwood entered the room to warm applause, his iconic presence filling the space. Despite his decades of fame, he greeted everyone with humility, shaking hands and chatting with attendees as if they were old friends. Lily, sitting in the front row with her mother, watched intently, waiting for the right moment. As the event progressed, Clint answered questions about his films, his directing style, and the challenges he had faced throughout his career. The audience hung on his every word, inspired by his wisdom and wit. Then, Lily raised her hand. Clint noticed the small figure among the sea of faces and nodded toward her. "You have a question?" he asked, his voice gentle yet commanding. Lily stood up, her voice clear and confident. "What does God mean to you, Mr. Eastwood?" The room fell silent. Conversations stopped, and all eyes turned to Clint. For a moment, the tough, no-nonsense actor appeared introspective, his expression softening as he considered the question. "That's a big question," he finally said, his gravelly voice carrying a note of sincerity. "And an important one." Clint took a deep breath before continuing. "You know, when you've lived as long as I have, you start to think about the big questions in life. Who we are, why we're here, and what's really important." He shared a story from his childhood, growing up during the Great Depression. "My mother used to take me to church every Sunday. She'd tell me that no matter how tough things got, there was always someone watching over us. As a kid, I didn't fully understand it, but as I got older, those words stayed with me." The audience was captivated. Clint's usual stoic demeanor gave way to vulnerability, a rare glimpse into the man behind the legend. He went on to describe how his belief in something greater had guided him through his career and personal life. "God, to me, means purpose," he said. "It means doing what you can to make the world a little better, even in small ways, and it means finding strength when things get tough." Lily listened intently, her notebook forgotten as she absorbed his words. Her eyes glistened with tears, touched by the sincerity of his response. Clint's voice grew stronger as he addressed not just Lily, but the entire audience. "We're all here for a reason, and while we may not always know what that reason is, I believe it's our job to live with kindness, courage, and faith." He turned back to Lily, his piercing gaze softening. "And you, young lady, have reminded me today why it's important to keep asking these questions, because it's through asking that we find our answers." The audience erupted into applause. Lily's mother wiped her eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. Clint knelt down to Lily's level, reaching out to shake her hand. "Thank you for asking me that," he said. "You've got a good head on your shoulders. Don't ever lose that curiosity." As the event concluded, Clint took a moment to pose for photos and sign autographs. When Lily approached him, he took her notebook and wrote a simple message. "To Lily, keep asking the big questions. Clint Eastwood." The video of the exchange quickly went viral, touching hearts around the world. Fans praised Clint for his heartfelt response, and Lily for her bravery in asking such a profound question. For Lily, it was a moment she would never forget. And for everyone who watched the story unfold, it was a reminder of the power of faith, curiosity, and the wisdom that comes with age and experience. On a quiet street in Los Angeles, a homeless man approached a passerby and asked for a single dollar. What he didn't realize was that the man he stopped was none other than Clint Eastwood. What unfolded next shocked everyone present, and thanks to a bystander's video, the story has touched hearts around the world. Clint's response was nothing short of extraordinary. It was a sunny afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. Clint Eastwood, dressed casually in a worn leather jacket and jeans, had parked his vintage Ford truck outside a small cafe. Known for his preference for quiet, unassuming outings, Clint was simply grabbing a coffee and enjoying a moment of peace. A few feet away, a homeless man named James sat on the curb, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps." His weathered face told a story of hardship, but his eyes still held a glimmer of hope. As Clint exited the cafe, coffee in hand, James gathered the courage to speak. "Excuse me, sir," James called out, his voice trembling slightly. "Can you spare a dollar?" Clint stopped in his tracks, turning to face the man. For a moment, there was silence. Passers-by glanced curiously, some recognizing Clint but staying back to see what would happen next. A young woman across the street began recording the interaction on her phone, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. Clint approached James slowly, his piercing eyes locking onto the man's. "A dollar?" he asked, his gravelly voice carrying both curiosity and warmth. James nodded, nervously adjusting his tattered jacket. "Yeah, just enough to get something to eat." Instead of reaching for his wallet, Clint crouched down to James's level, meeting him eye to eye. "What's your name?" he asked. "James," the man replied. I didn't mean to bother you. I'm trying to get back on my feet." Clint nodded thoughtfully. "Well, James, let me tell you something. Asking for help isn't something to be ashamed of. It takes guts." The crowd began to gather, drawn by the unexpected scene. The young woman filming whispered, "That's Clint Eastwood," to her friend. But Clint paid no attention to the growing audience. His focus was solely on James. 4. Midpoint development. Clint reached into his pocket and pulled out not just a dollar, but a crisp $100 bill. He handed it to James, whose eyes widened in disbelief. "This isn't just for a meal," Clint said. "This is to remind you that people care." James stammered, tears welling up in his eyes. "I don't know what to say. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." But Clint wasn't done. He stood up and addressed the small crowd that had formed. "This man doesn't just need money. He needs a chance. We've all had hard times, and it's our job to help each other when we can." He turned back to James. "Tell me, James, what do you need to get back on your feet? Do you have a place to stay?" James shook his head. "Not right now. I've been trying to find work, but it's hard without a clean place to sleep." Clint nodded again, his expression resolute. "All right," he said. "Here's what we're going to do." He pulled out his phone and made a call to a local shelter he had supported for years. Within minutes, arrangements were made for James to have a safe place to sleep, and resources to help him find work. The crowd watched in awe as Clint personally escorted James to his truck, offering him a ride to the shelter. "You're not alone in this," Clint told him. "Everyone deserves a second chance." The young woman filming couldn't hold back her tears. "I can't believe what I just saw," she said, her voice trembling. "He's not just a movie star. He's a real hero." By the time Clint returned to his truck, James was safely on his way to the shelter, a renewed sense of hope lighting up his face. The video of the encounter quickly went viral, garnering millions of views and countless comments praising Clint's humility and generosity. James later shared his story in a local news interview, expressing his gratitude to Clint and the shelter. "He didn't just give me money, he gave me dignity," James said. "I'll never forget what he did for me." As for Clint, he remained characteristically humble. When asked about the incident, he simply said, "I just did what anyone should do. If you can help someone, why wouldn't you?"